Singapore's political parties face increasingly complex challenges in attracting and retaining talent, as highlighted by Associate Professor Ian Chong of the National University of Singapore. In an expansive response shared on his Facebook page, following CNA's partial coverage of his interview, Professor Chong outlined the systemic and societal factors shaping recruitment in Singapore's political landscape. The CNA article, published on 6 December 2024, titled Growing Voters' Expectations and Public Scrutiny Hampering Singapore Political Parties' Recruitment Efforts, touched on these themes as Singapore anticipates an election to be held before November 2025, which is just a few months away. However, Professor Chong's full remarks expand on these issues, offering a comprehensive analysis of the hurdles faced by political parties, particularly the opposition. According to Professor Chong, societal discouragement toward political participation significantly hampers recruitment efforts. He explained, the overall discouragement of involvement in politics dissuades people from joining political parties. This pervasive apathy, he argued, stems from long-standing institutional tendencies. In Singapore, political office holders, the mainstream press, schools, and people in general historically treat participation in political debate in the pejorative as something to be avoided and even potentially costly, he said. This attitude impacts all political parties, but disproportionately affects the opposition. The ruling People's Action Party, Professor Chong noted, benefits from resources and access to state-linked entities like Reach and Risens, which provide valuable voter insights. Opposition parties, on the other hand, must rely more on grassroots outreach. Professor Chong also highlighted the absence of regular public opinion polling in Singapore, describing it as a barrier for political parties. Potential candidates have to do more outreach. This is especially the case for political parties other than the PAP, he observed. TOC previously highlighted that phone and face-to-face surveys conducted by government agencies, or those commissioned by them, are not publicly published. These surveys are likely used solely by internal agencies, which are led by PAP ministers. When discussing why individuals enter politics, Professor Chong explained that motivations often range from career advancement to a desire for societal change. Some believe that participation in partisan politics is a way to actively maintain a status quo they prefer. Still others believe that partisan politics is a venue where they can bring about change, he stated. However, he cautioned against viewing politics as just another career path. Those who see elected office as a job like any other may think that it is fine for compensation to buy the best talent. Others who see elected office as public service may ask whether it is the best idea to have people whose primary goals are not the public interest to serve in elected office. This topic ties back to a long-standing criticism about the high salaries of Singapore's political appointment holders, who are the highest paid in the world. The benchmark for an entry-level minister, pegged at grade MR4, is based on the median income of the top 1,000 Singaporean income earners, with a 40% discount applied to reflect the ethos of the public service, according to the Public Service Division. The annual salary for a grade MR4 minister, including bonuses, can reach 935,000 Singapore dollars, while the Prime Minister's salary stands at 2.2 million Singapore dollars, underscoring the significant disparity between political remuneration in Singapore and other countries. For comparison, the annual salary of the US President is $400,000. Professor Chong recognized progress in recruiting women, particularly by the PAP, but he argued for greater representation. I think they can have more women candidates, more women in the Central Executive Committee, and more women holding full ministerial portfolios, ideally across ethnic and religious groups, he said. He also noted persistent societal biases that deter women from entering politics. There remain lingering views that women are less able than men, or that they should take on less public roles or roles that have less to do with authority. This should not be the case, but it still is, he commented. On youth participation, Professor Chong acknowledged that young people face significant challenges, particularly the opportunity cost of leaving stable careers. He observed, when it comes to candidates, there is also the question of experience, and whether people feel they are at stable enough a position in their careers to do something else. Addressing the impact of social media, Professor Chong remarked, some are happy focusing on a single cause. Others believe that being part of the legislature or executive is the way to effect change. However, he noted that Singapore's lack of single-issue parties limits political participation, for those who prefer advocacy over comprehensive legislative work. The structural challenges for minority candidates were another key focus of Professor Chong's remarks. He explained, in Singapore's political system, the GRCs hold up minorities as representatives of their community. This means that minority candidates are often viewed by the public and others in their communities as their champions or representatives. This is a structural issue. He elaborated that this dual expectation creates additional pressure for minority candidates. Given that they are minorities, they also need to have broader appeal beyond their communities to be electorally competitive, he said. Professor Chong also discussed the evolving role of MPs, which now combines legislative responsibilities with municipal management. In Singapore, MPs are increasingly expected to pay more attention to lawmaking and not just municipal matters. This means more demands on an MP's time, attention, and energy, he explained. To address these growing demands, he proposed transitioning to a system of full-time MPs with state-funded legislative staff. This can enable them to more effectively address increasingly complex issues facing Singapore and Singapore society, he suggested. Professor Chong dismissed concerns that recent political scandals deter potential candidates. He characterized these as cases of individual misconduct rather than systemic issues. Several of the scandals involve personal impropriety, which are ultimately individual issues, he said. However, he acknowledged that some candidates might hesitate to raise sensitive topics following incidents like Rasa Khan's. Those who have interest in raising sensitive topics may look at Rasa Khan's case and wonder how they can do so in future, he observed. Professor Chong concluded by urging a broader cultural shift toward embracing political participation. The net effect is to make politics seem dangerous and something to be avoided, even though that is not technically possible. That encourages apathy and social disengagement, he said. His detailed response underscores the need for both cultural and structural changes to ensure a more vibrant and inclusive political landscape in Singapore. Singapore's electorate evolves. Political parties that seek electoral success must evolve too, he noted, highlighting the importance of aligning recruitment strategies with societal shifts. Professor Chong's comprehensive analysis presents a clear call to action to foster a political culture that values engagement, diversity, and public service.